Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radically Loved Radio. I wanted to create a place where people can go to get inspired, get motivated, or find some clarity and get tools to create a radically loved life. I will do my best to provide information on a variety of subjects, including yoga, holistic health, life coaching, spirituality, meditation, and overall mindful living. Each episode will bring you some of the world's best spiritual leaders, entrepreneurs, yoga teachers, coaches, along with some of my closest friends, and we will talk about their life experiences and journeys to create something more out of their lives and how they continue to grow to make that happen. Thanks for listening.
Exactly. You can just call me your friend. I really don't care.
Hello, everybody. So you just heard the voice of Cassandra Bodzak on the show. Welcome to Radically Loved. You guys know that it's like going to be no structure when I have my friends on the show because that's just what happens. So Cassandra Bodzak is, I just want to call you like a spiritual leader. Okay. She's a best-selling author and she's here to talk about her new book, Manifestation Through Meditation. And I'm just so excited to have you on. Welcome back again. I think, how many times have you done the show?
Just once. I think just once before, like eons ago.
Oh God, man, that was like probably season 1.
I think so. It was like another lifetime ago. I think I had just moved to LA, actually.
Yes, you had just moved because I remember us talking about that. And now here we are many years later. You know, you sometimes, for the people listening, you, our beloved listeners, you know, sometimes you just meet people in your life and you're like, yeah, that person's going to be in my life for a very long time. She's definitely that person. And even though, I guess maybe because even we don't talk all the time, we're on a group text with a bunch of our other friends. Maybe it's just because I see you on social media and I'm like, I know everything that's happening in your life. I feel, or like Sahara will tell me, you know, she'll give me the update. So it's really nice. But I'm just so happy for you. I mean, you've got some great things going on and I just have nothing but love for you. And I'm excited to talk about your new book. So I know I'm talking a lot. I'll let you talk here in a second. When did you write this book? Like in the middle of a pandemic or what? WTF? What's going on?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I echo all that. I do feel like we've just like been in each other's paths for so long. And it's kind of beautiful how I feel like the ebb and the flow of like that I feel like I'm being, you know, called closer to you and I was talking about our friend Allison about this too. It's like 2 women that have been in my life for years actually, but like just, I don't know, just how like the world works where you're kind of like in different spaces. And I love our friend group because we're all just so busy, but we can like just tap in and be like, okay, we got to go deep right now.
There's definitely something about having people in your life that you just drop in with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We could go in deep really quickly. We could really have those conversations in a very like deeply connected way. And I live for that.
Yeah, I feel like that's invaluable. So I wrote this book so fast. It channeled through me. I literally started writing it in March. Yeah, so fast. And
you're talking about this year?
Yeah.
Wait, you started writing this book in March. I'm literally, you are the embodiment of what you wrote about, manifesting through meditation.
So the funny thing is that I manifested this book on my birthday this year. And I really feel like I dedicated the book as in honor of my grandma who passed in January this year. And my grandma was like my best friend, my person on earth. And she was like I call her like, she'd be like my first call for everything, you know? And so when she passed in January, obviously that was like it's been the hardest thing I've ever had to walk through, but this gets to the book. So my birthday is in February and I was really nervous about having my first birthday without her. And so I had been talking and channeling to my grandma and writing her letters like since she passed and like all of this stuff. And so coming up to my birthday, I'm like, okay, grandma, I expect a birthday gift. And I don't care what it is, but whatever it is, I want it to be something that I know is undeniably from you. And so on my birthday, I was at a meditation retreat. I decided to do that. And I had this amazing meditation, which is kind of like part one, where I literally felt like I plugged in to source and divine energy, and it like electrocuted my whole body. It was so wild and amazing. And I like saw her face, and it was this really beautiful moment. And I had been meditating for like 4 hours that morning. And then when like moment happened, and I was like, oh my God, that was my birthday gift from my grandma, because she knew that that was one of the things I'm like a junkie to really experience tangible experiences of the divine, let's say. So I was like, oh, that was amazing. And then I get up to my room, and there's an email from a publisher about like if I wanted to do this book. And I was like, oh, this is grandma. This is her. Because first of all, she was a Capricorn through and through. So she loved like my work and my ambitions. But also because I had been on a journey of trying to write this book for a few years, and like going through different iterations of it and pitching it in different ways. And it just like wasn't ever right. And she had been on that journey with me the entire time, because she was the person I would always like call and talk about it. And so I was like, of course, like now that she's at kind of a higher command station, was able to pull some strings for me. And so when I got it, I was like, oh, this is literally exactly what I want to write. And then once we started writing, I think the whole book downloaded in like a week and a half.
That is so, I'm like, I got chills. I love those moments where you ask for the divine, or you ask your spirit guides for a sign, and they just show up like 100%. It is always, and especially so undeniable. I love it that you said she's at a what? Higher command station?
She's at a higher command station now.
I think that's so awesome. Okay, so I have so many questions, because I love the whole manifestation idea. To me is, well, it's twofold, right? Because I feel like it's something, it's a word, it's a catchword that a lot of people use a lot of the time. I'm 100%, I believe in manifestation. I believe that manifestation is something that you have to not only cultivate in a spiritual sense, but also it's something that you think, it's something that you say, it's something that you do. And I feel that most people don't talk about the doing part. And for me, just to sort of like be on board with what you're doing, is the meditation for me, right? So it's like the doing is the actual practice of how are you making this happen? What steps are you taking? So walk us through, a little bit of the processes in the book. Like, what was the intention behind it? Where do you want the readers to go?
Yeah, I love that. And it's true. Like, that's the same thing for me. One of the things that I was realizing, I've always been a huge like meditation, since my spiritual awakening. Meditation was such a like foundational part of my practice. And what I started noticing after working with clients and in like group programs and all of that stuff, and I was like, okay, well, what's like going on? Like, why are certain things not hitting for people, right? And I think so much of it was because people were trying to skip the meditation part of it, right? And I think so much in like kind of what we were talking about, like manifestation catchphrase culture, let's just call it, right? There's this illusion that you can like snap your fingers, manifest stuff, without actually doing the spiritual work it requires. So I was really excited to like actually get to write a manual to lead someone through that maybe feels like they're like lost in the desert when it comes to like meditation. And so I'll go through, so the process is a 4-step process in the book that I created. And then in the 100 meditations, the first 10 are kind of like, I call them like back pocket meditations, or meditations you can kind of do if you just need like a little tune up before you go into a meeting, or, you're having an off day. It doesn't have to be like a big project. And then the first 40, there's 10 meditations for each step. So you have 10 different meditations to help you do each of those 4 steps of manifesting. And I did that so that you can do all 10 of them, or, you know, you can kind of taste the buffet and like find one you really like and like dive deeper into that one. And then the rest, the other 50 are like more specialized meditation. So if you want to go into like relationships or career or calling in your tribe, you know, all different things like that, you can get a little bit more specialized with it. But so the 4 steps, one is remembering who you are. And I think this is the step that everyone skips. And unfortunately, if you skip this step, the rest of the steps don't work. And listen, just as a disclaimer, if anyone's like, oh my God, we'll just give up right now. You know, we don't all have to remember who we are like every second of the day, you know, unless you're like Buddha, I don't think can happen. But our meditation practice is a time where we actually get to connect to that space and remember who we are. And for me, that's the primary purpose of meditation, right? Is we get that 5, 20, 1 hour, whatever it is you want to do, to go into that space. And there's different ways you can do it. So whether it's connecting to your heart center, and that's like your doorway in. If it's, for me, I really like, I go into the infinite abyss is what I call it, right? And I just feel like in essence, an infinite space and connected to everything, and also just like floating and, you know, connecting to the divine, actually feeling like that experience that I had, like feeling like you're plugging into like a greater power source, right? So there's 10 different kind of ways you can like play around and see what resonates with you. But meditation, I feel like, is the essential to that first step, because when we remember who we are, then we remember that we're divine creators. We remember that we have infinite potential, that we have limitless possibilities for our life. And that is actually the material that we create from, right? That's the area that we manifest things from. We don't manifest from our human personality, right? We manifest from the infinite within us. And so in order to do that, we got to touch it. We got to like get there. And so that's why I think I'm such a like stickler for manifesting through meditation, is because now once you start working on getting there, right? And you've now developed that, first of all, that alone will change your life, right? Because all of a sudden now you're going into the rest of your day with a different attitude. Life isn't happening to me. Life is happening for me. I can happen to life as well, right? I can create, you know, a shift. And then the second step is connecting to your soul's desires. So once you remember who you are, we connect to our soul's desires, which is different than connecting to your human's desires. Because our human might see like, oh, everybody, all the people I follow on Instagram, they're writing a book, right? Maybe I need to write a book. Instead of actually going within into our soul and saying, well, what does my soul crave to do? Maybe my soul wants to open a pottery studio and doesn't want to be on Instagram. Maybe my soul wants to be a teacher or a mom or an interior, or whatever it is. Maybe my soul wants to travel to Costa Rica. It's like your soul, I believe that we incarnate here, and our desires are like divine seeds that were planted in our souls that we're meant to be the stewards of growing in this lifetime. And so there's 10 different meditations. And again, I think you find those answers in meditation, because it's when you are able to loose yourself of the external pressures of the world and anybody else's opinion or whatnot, and just really go into your heart and go into your essence and say, what is the experience that I came here to have, that I want to have, right? And so getting really clear on your soul's desires. And then another little part of that I'll add is I have a meditation, and I also explain the process in the book on how to get to the essence of that desire, because sometimes we think we want a desire, but what we're really doing is we're getting attached to how it happens or the form it comes in or whatnot, right? So just to go on the book example, if your soul feels called to like put out a book in the world or write something, right? It's so easy to be like, well, I really want Penguin Random House to publish it, and I have to get this big of an advance, and it has to look like this, and it has to do da da da. And you've created all of these like things that your human thinks it needs, but your soul actually just desires to share some information in the form of a book, right? So it's like once we get open, then we get open to potentially even more aligned publishers. We get open to a hybrid publisher. We decide to self-publish, or then all of a sudden there's infinite possibilities open to us, and we can trust that we'll manifest the one that's in our highest good, right? And then that, because we've gotten down to the essence of what that real desire is, right? The third step is then, and this, everybody hates this step. This is the step where you have to look at your shit. You have to look at, what are my wounds? What are my limiting beliefs? What are the things? I like to say, if anyone who's listening thought of that thing that they're like, this is what my soul desires, this is what I'm manifesting. If me and Rosie were to like have tea with you and be like, so why don't you have it already? Whatever you would say to us is exactly what you need to clear. Like whatever your top of mind, like real strong excuses as to why it hasn't manifested yet is exactly where your work starts. And so I have a process in the book where I really help you do like a full on fear inventory and like work through those and like look at the evidence you've collected and stuff. And then a bunch of different meditations, from everything from healing childhood wounds to healing things that maybe even happened in past lives to healing limiting beliefs, all different stuff. That's the work where, again, like it really does take you, again, like you were saying, like the action, right? Yeah. That's like it's like not always a fun thing to do. I find it kind of fun because I get excited for what I know is on the other side of it, right? I'm a special little snowflake. Yeah. But, because I think like, oh, wow, look at that awful belief I have. Like, what do I got to do to zap that out? Like, it's kind of like popping a pimple away. Oh.
It's really good.
This episode is brought to you by Cerebral. Did you know that last year rates of anxiety and depression have doubled in the US? These days, it can take weeks to get a traditional therapy appointment. Cerebral is an online mental health service that offers prescription medication, counseling, and therapy for anxiety, depression, ADHD, insomnia, and more. I was so grateful to have been introduced to Cerebral while I was going through COVID. I needed to talk to somebody. I was suffering from a very terrible bout of anxiety, and the process was so entirely easy for me. And the counselor was so kind and loving and completely empathetic to what I was going through. They do offer prescription medication online through a licensed provider, and they ship medications directly to your door. They have unlimited messaging with your care team. And with Cerebral mobile app, it's like having your own personal care team wherever you are. You can connect to them straight through the app, schedule sessions, and find a place in your home where you're comfortable taking the conversation. Cerebral has affordable treatments that are 1/3 of the price of traditional therapy. Treatment options are available with or without insurance. Cerebral is in-network for several insurers, and they're working every day to grow their partnerships. And for a limited time, for all of our listeners, you can receive 65% off of your first month of medication management and care counseling at getcerebral.com/loved. Go to getcerebral.com/loved to get 65% off of your first month. That's a total of $30 to get started. Join Cerebral today on their mission to make quality mental health care accessible and affordable for all. This episode is brought to you by Orate. Orate is a fine jewelry brand founded by women for women. Pieces range from classic to statement to completely original. Orate makes the jewelry you've always wanted but could never find. Because Orate sells directly to you without the middleman markup, they can offer the same quality as traditional Fifth Avenue brands at a fraction of the cost. Orate hacked the jewelry market, making real gold accessible. I've always had a hard time with earrings because I am allergic to a lot of different metals, and so I can only wear gold. And it's really hard for me to find little studs that I like. And most of the time I might find a single one. I don't need them to match, but again, it's very difficult to find something that I really like that is real gold and that's affordable. So when I went on c8b3112e1d9a49609b854eae35d74ba2 and found my new favorite studs, the Diamond Luna stud earring, if you want to twin with me, I ended up just getting 2 of them because I loved the one so much. Now, I'm not a big makeup person, but something that I do wear day and night that I don't ever take off is my jewelry. I don't have a lot of big bulky jewelry, but my earrings, the little studs or my rings that I wear, it just helps me feel adorned throughout the day. And even if I just stay in my PJs all day, it still makes me feel really good to be able to not only support a female-owned business, but to also feel good. Ore is looking to set the standard for women because they deserve the best, always reminding them to set the gold bar high. Besides transparent pricing, Ore has now teamed up with Klarna to make their items even more accessible for all of you. Basically, using Klarna, you can shop now and pay over time. Just a more flexible way to get what you want from Ore. It's also extremely important for me to have something that's ethically sourced and sustainably made. Their gold is never mined, and their gemstones and diamonds are also certified conflict-free. So Ore is offering our audience 20% off of your first purchase. So go to orenewyork.com/loved and use the promo code LOVED. That's 20% off with no minimum spend, and they rarely have discounts as high as 20% off. So I really encourage you to shop now while it's going on. Maybe even shopping for an early holiday gift? ? This offer is only exclusive for the listeners of the Radically Loved podcast. So head over to orenewyork.com/loved and use the promo code LOVED to get 20% off. That's AURAT newyork.com to get 20% off with no minimum spend.
That's really good. And honestly, I feel the same way. And I think that it's because you feel and you know what it's like to be on the other side, that's why it gets exciting. So it's not like she's not a glutton for punishment, guys. She knows what the work is. She's done the work and she knows what it feels like to have that respite of popping that pimple.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important attitude to have towards it, right? Where it's like, once you start knowing, like, I remember when I first started, like eons ago, working on my money fears. And like, I feel like I'll probably be working on like money stuff forever. I have so much, but I worked on, like, when I first started doing that work, and I really saw like how much my finances shifted so fast, and how it, and not even, and again, it wasn't like, I'm a big believer in magic, but it wasn't really magic. What happened was I just had a different mindset. So all of a sudden I was acting differently. I was doing things differently. I wasn't afraid to look at certain things. I handled things. I read certain books that just like, it's kind of amazing when you start doing this work, that when you start clearing that stuff, it's like there's this other side of your personality that finally gets allowed to be like available to you. And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I could be the person that was like interested in that kind of a thing, or that was available to charge that or to do whatever it was, you know?
The limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves are what keep us from opening that door to manifest more of that abundance in.
Yeah, for sure. And so then the last step, which is I think the most fun step, is quantum embodiment. And that's when you get to just be it now. Like, you get to show up, and there's, 10 different meditations to help you do that, to help you like have a powwow with 2.0 version you, for timeline hopping, for embodying it, for upgrading your mind to the next level version of you. And I think that's like, once you go through the process, that's kind of the culminating step, where you're not waiting for something external to happen to give you permission, because anything we want, material or otherwise, is because the person we think will be from having it, right? The person we're going to show up for, how we're going to feel, what that's going to like say about us or give us extra confidence or make us feel more worthy or whatever it is, right? And so you don't got to wait for it to happen. You get to just show up as that right now, and that just magnetizes it to you even faster. So we have fun with that. That's like everything from redoing your daily rituals to like, how would your I call it your 2.0 version of yourself, right? How would that like next level you, how would they do life? What would they think about certain problems, right? How would they have to take care of themselves? How might they dress? How might they show up for certain things? What kind of schedule would they have? Different things like that, so that you can actually anchor it into your present day life.
Yes, I love this. Can you give us an example of something you did that with that came to pass?
So many things. Well, one of the biggest ones for me was when I manifested being on a cooking show on ABC. And this is like a really clear example of how that came to pass. Was I would show up, and multiple times a week, I don't think it was every day, but I would say multiple times a week, I would like record these horrible YouTube videos of me cooking in my kitchen in New York. And I just I had nobody was following me on YouTube. The videos were yellow. I didn't even know how to edit. So it was all one take. I had all of the ingredients just right behind me. And then I would like hold the bowl and like just be pushing them. It was hilarious. Like it was so, but I did it because nothing brought me more joy than that like ridiculous like 2 hours it took me to do it all, right? And I had so much fun. And I didn't even know at the time, I didn't know how to submit oneself for like a cooking show. I didn't know, even what cooking shows were like. All I knew was that I like to do this. And so I did it every day. One of the producers from ABC ended up finding me and calling me up, and I got to do it on national TV. And I think same thing with the book. The book was really funny. Both of my books, I started telling people about the book way before the book was actually a real thing. And I started writing and for this book, it's funny because I would say when I was energetically putting things into this book, I was writing a different book. So I only wrote this book after like this book deal came to be. But it didn't matter that I wasn't writing this book because energetically I was showing up to write every day. And I was making writing a priority in my life. So I was still sending that clear message that like I'm willing to show up. So I think so much of that is like thinking about how do you organize your day around that. Even with recently I've gotten back into acting more. And yeah, it was a big turnaround for me and just allowing my soul to express itself.
Yeah.
And when that hit first came up, I was like terrified, right? It felt crazy in a way because I had kind of retired that a bit back in the day. But I did the stuff I tell everyone else to do when it comes to manifesting. So I was like, okay, let me clear the limiting beliefs I have around this. Let me look at what I need to embody. And so I bought, I have it right now. I have like this like blue screen and green screen, and I have a whole backdrop, and I have a whole like camera setup in here for my things. And I started taking the time and like getting myself back into acting classes and putting acting on my schedule. So, and I've just been doing that for a couple of months, and I've already booked 2 roles in films and got like an agent and a manager, and like things have happened. And I think it's just because I just decided like if I was showing up at like professionally for this, and I just did it. I did it before anybody wanted me to or asked me to.
Oftentimes that's how we have to do things. I love everything that you're saying because by the way, side note, I auditioned for that show on ABC. Yeah, I flew out. Yeah, I was living in Portland. It was back in 2013. And right, because that was the year that they were doing that show. It was the cooks against the professional chefs. It was like a competition show. I had my now defunct Organic Mexican Girl blog. And yeah, and I auditioned. I went for 2 different auditions, and then they ended up going with, I think, this other guy that was in our audition group. But yeah, that's awesome that you said that. It's funny because it came up not that long ago. And when I looked it up, I saw that you were there, and I'm like, oh, is this the show that Cass did? And I meant to text you and then it just never happened right now that you're bringing it up. Anyway, there's a reason why I'm saying this. I just want to piggyback to what she's saying, because there was a time where I wanted to do speaking. I wanted to speak in front of an audience. I wanted to be able to bring my message out into the world. And I am not particularly the type of person that enjoys being on camera. I don't really like, I so appreciate actors and artists because they just really come alive and it always really inspires me. I'm not that person. I'm more of I like to be behind the camera and I like to be in the audience. I want to have the experience. I want to appreciate the art. But when I was here, when we moved back from Portland, we moved back to LA, Tori kept telling me about this acting class that he really loved. And he thought that the teacher who has now passed away, he passed away 2 years ago, Mr. Sam Christensen. I ended up going and I took an acting class just for the purpose of being on a stage and having that, exactly what you're saying, put myself in a position where I am now in an audience. And it was really sweet and cute because it was a monologue class. First of all, I had to Google what monologue was, even though I knew, but I'm like, in acting, like, what is this?
Oh my God, I love it.
And so everybody would come in with a piece that they wanted to perform. There was only like maybe 10 people in class. This was like, I don't know, this was like 4 or 5, 6 years, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I think when I started to do the podcast. And everybody's showing up with their monologue. And I told the teacher, I would always get nervous. I'm like, I don't have a monologue. I'm not an actor. Like this isn't why I'm here. And he's like, that's okay. Like, why don't you bring in a poem or something that you really love to read? It could be anything, just something that you're going to read in front of everybody. So yeah, I brought in a couple of poetry books and a couple of passages that I really liked. And I would stand there just to get me comfortable, right, in front of people, because in their minds, I'm just going to go back to what Cass was saying earlier about becoming an author and being a writer, being an entrepreneur, being an actor. All these things require, in your mind, the fantasy feels good. You're releasing the oxytocin, the serotonin of talking about doing something that you're passionate about. It is something completely different once you're there. So it's not as glamorous as people might think. It actually takes work. Writing, what did she just say? She woke up every day. She was writing. She was actively engaged in the process of manifesting what she wanted. The same thing in my mind, it was very romantical to be on a stage and give this really inspirational talk. It was a different thing being in front of people. And I'm not saying an audience. In my mind, it's like an audience with hundreds of people. This was like literally in front of 6 people. And I was terrified. I mean, Riff, I wanted everybody to go into down dog because I didn't want to, I'm like down dog. I can teach in front of a lot of people. Why? Because I'm guiding them through practice. That's different than having everybody's eyes on you, right? And I know that people that are performers or that really are passionate about that, like people like you that really can embody that experience, like, and you come alive, right? You're able to perform something that is coming from deep within you, right? For people like me who they don't have that, right? It's really scary to be in front of people, even if I'm reading. So the book, first of all, the book is right, covering my entire face. And Sam's like, put it down. Do you know it by heart? Why don't you just paraphrase what's in there? Tell us a story. And I'm just like, okay, well, like I'm looking on the floor, like not looking at anybody. He's like, you have to engage with people. But the reason why I'm saying that is because for me, somebody who's not an actor, I took an acting class and I'll tell you, it not only helped my ability to feel empowered in front of an audience, it made me feel more confident because I did that scary thing. And it helped every area of my life, not just my business or my professional life, but it helped me. That was what I needed in order to create this podcast. My ability to be right. It's like that comfort level, that idea. So I love what you're saying. And I love that you went back and you're doing it now and like you're booking jobs. I love that you're saying this. It's so inspiring. And I hope that people listening to this are really feeling that transfer, that download.
But I also love what you said about that acting class, because I think that brings up a really good point, that we never know what anything is for. We think we know what things are for, right? And just, I think, because naturally were you already on your journey and you're open and kind of listening and intuitive already at that moment, it allowed you to be open to that suggestion, right? And to be like, oh, actually, I'm going to take an acting class, instead of being like, I'm not going to take an acting class. I want to be a podcaster. Like, why would I take an acting class? Right. Sometimes we can be so one lane. And when we're a little bit more open, we're a little bit we're available for what those desires are, and I think that's a big part of the journey, is when we're like in touch with those soul desires. We can, same thing, like I open myself up to be like, okay, I'm going to try this acting thing now. I'm going to, do this, right?